The 1970s started off with a bang in the car world, despite some later disappointments with fuel efficiency, safety standards, and high insurance rates. It was a time of dreams, especially when it came to cars. Two standout machines from that era became iconic poster cars. Unlike today's uniform aerodynamics, cars back then had distinctive looks. While some might consider the 1970s a lackluster decade for driving, that's far from true, as these cars we are about to look at demonstrate. Each pushes the limits in its own way, and not a single one has a boring, boxy shape. Coming in first on our list is the Tomaso Pantera. The Pantera might not be the first car that comes to mind when you think of global icons, but in its own way, it was. Alejandro de Tomaso, an Argentinian living in Italy's Modena, brought this machine to life. Designed by the American-born Tom Tjrda at Ghia, the Pantera boasted a Ford 351 V8 engine and was sold at Lincoln Mercury dealerships. Unlike its predecessor, the Mangusta, which had its share of challenges, the Pantera became a sensation. It blended eye-catching aesthetics, rear mid-engine handling, and a reliable American drivetrain. Over 7,000 of these cars rolled off the production line during its 20-year tenure, and they remain highly sought after today. The early pre-L versions with their sleek chrome bumpers are especially cool compared to the later models with the bulkier 5 miles per hour rubber bumpers mandated by law. Can you appreciate the vibe? In 1970, GM was on a roll, and I mean that in the best possible way. The team of designers and engineers unleashed a lineup of high-performance beasts that left a lasting mark. Just think about it, the 1970 Chevy Camaros 28, 1970 Pontiac Trans, 1970 Buick GS and GSX Stage 1, the 1970 Oldsmobile 44230, and 1970 Pontiac GTO Ram Air 4 were all born in this era. However, the king of the hill was undeniably the 1970 Chevy Chevelle SS454 LS6. It towered above not only its GM siblings, but also outshone everything Detroit had to offer. The standard power in the SS454 was no slouch, boasting the LS5 with hydraulic lifters and a robust 360 horsepower. Pretty impressive, right? But for those who craved even more, there was the option code LS6, a choice made by approximately 4,500 lucky customers. This elevated the Chevelle to a whole new level, securing the highest factory horsepower rating of the entire muscle car era. The 454 cubic inch big block V8 came with a solid lifter camshaft, churning out a whopping 450 horsepower at 5,600 rounds per minute, along with 500 pound-foot of torque at 3,600 rounds per minute, and a red line at 6,500 rounds per minute. Magazine tests clocked it, running the quarter mile in low 13-second times at speeds exceeding 105 miles per hour. Now that's some serious power and speed packed into the iconic SS454. Moving on, we have 1972 BMW U2002 Tii. The hot little coupe in question, the BMW U2002 Tii holds a special place in automotive history. Without it, the iconic BMW M3, which made its debut in the late 1980s and continues to impress today, might not exist. The 2002 made its debut in the late 1960s, but it wasn't until 1971, with a facelift and the introduction of the 2002 Tii, that it truly turned heads. This model made its way to America a year later, playing a pivotal role in establishing the small sports coupe market and solidifying BMW's performance image. Priced at about $4,500, buyers got more than just a car. The 2002 Tii came with stiffer springs than the 2002 Ti, both front and rear anti-sway bars, larger front disc brakes, and wider wheels. The 2.0-liter four-cylinder engine was tuned to produce 140 horsepower at 5,800 rounds per minute, coupled with a close-ratio 4-speed manual featuring a shorter first gear. This German marvel was more than just numbers on paper. It was about the overall driving experience, excelling in handling, turning, and stopping. Car and Driver summed it up perfectly in February of 1972, stating, "No matter how you try, you can't help but like it. It is the essence of motoring truth. No strobe stripes, no phony teardrop racing mirrors, no triple turret taillights. Just finely honed machinery in the simplest steel and glass case." Nice! Speaking of finely honed machinery, you can't talk about cool cars of the 70s and not bring up The Aston Martin V8 Vantage. Why, you ask? Aside from an epic name, this car commands attention with its undeniable presence, roaring soundtrack, and mind-bending performance. Even by today's standards, a 0-60 time of 5.2 seconds is quick, and a top speed of 170 miles per hour is still beyond the reach of most cars. However, in the 1970s, achieving these stats in a four-seater was unheard of. The Vantage achieved this feat by incorporating revised camshafts, valves, carburetors, and an airbox, resulting in a remarkable 40% more power than the original V8. To handle this increased power, a few aerodynamic tweaks were necessary. The Vantage received a new front air dam, a blanked-off radiator, and a trunk spoiler, not only to keep the car under control, but also to give it an even more aggressive look than before. In the context of what other cars were offering in 1978, the V8 Vantage was truly out of sight. Next on, we have the 1973 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am SD 455. 9 years after the original Pontiac GTO ignited Detroit's horsepower war, the festivities were winding down. However, Pontiac wasn't ready to call it quits just yet. In the midst of gas shortages, rising insurance costs, and tightening safety regulations, Pontiac boldly introduced the Super Duty 455 Trans Am in 1973, giving muscle car enthusiasts one more big displacement powerhouse when others were hesitating. Originally intended for the GTO, the Super Duty 455 found its exclusive home in the Firebird. This beast became the fastest and most powerful American car you could get your hands on, but its reign was short-lived, lasting just 2 years. Unlike typical smog motors of the time, the Super Duty 455 was a high-performance marvel. It featured a reinforced block, forged pistons, enhanced cylinder heads, a new valvetrain, an upgraded intake, and exhaust manifolds. In 1973, it cranked out 310 horsepower, and in 1974, it still boasted an impressive 290 horsepower, making it the last American car with over 300 horsepower for more than 2 decades. The production numbers tell a tale of rarity. Only 295 units, including 43 formulas, rolled off the assembly line in the first year, while the final year saw a bump to 943 units. We can all agree that the Super Duty 455 Trans Am wasn't just a car. It was a defiant statement in the face of changing times, showcasing Pontiac's commitment to power and performance against the odds. Now, in 1981, Car and Driver wrote this about our next car. Not only has the Countach been the flat-out farthest-out car on the market for 10 years, but it is so far out that all the others have conceded the market. Its continued presence has caused Lamborghini to be perceived as a company that will stop at nothing. They were referring to the 1974 Lamborghini Countach LP 400. The mid-engine Countach, pronounced Countach, had evolved into a spectacle of wild flares, scoops, and wings fit for an aircraft by the time the LP 400 was introduced in 1974. Designed by Marcello Gondini at Bertone, this original Countach is considered the best, and it left an indelible mark on automotive design. The LP400 is the progenitor of Lamborghini doors, and its sharp-edged design continues to influence Lamborghinis produced today. When production kicked off in 1973, the extreme shape of its aluminum panels, featuring oversized NACA ducts in bold proportions, left Ferrari scrambling for a worthy response. Despite its flamboyant appearance, the Countach is surprisingly compact. Measuring just 163 inches in length, an LP400 is approximately 20 inches shorter than a new Corvette Stingray. Yet, within this petite frame, Lamborghini managed to fit a longitudinally mounted 4.0-liter DOH CV12, generating 370 horsepower, paired with a 5-speed gearbox. The LP400 could achieve a top speed of over 180 miles per hour, making it not just a stunning visual spectacle, but a true performance powerhouse of its era. Well, as we wrap up this automotive journey through time, exploring the iconic cars of the 1970s and beyond, one question lingers. Which of these legendary rides would you want in your dream garage? From the groundbreaking Pantera to the rebellious Pontiac Super Duty 455, each car has left an indelible mark on the road. Which one revs up your passion for vintage power? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, hit that like button, subscribe for more thrilling automotive tales, and join us next time as we continue our journey through the fascinating world of cars.